Hello, YouTube. It's now been 8 green days in a row. So what I did is I went back in time to find other periods when we put in a series of green days in a row. These times here are not actually going to be 8 in a row. So this time's a little bit different. But if we look at the chart, this is going to be very important because if we get a green day tomorrow, it pretty much means that we're going to be running a test to the previous monthly high. We made it within 5 cents of it today. And if we look over here to the QQQ, right, the Qs, what did we do? We actually got that monthly higher high. So if we hide everything here, what do we know? Well, we know that last month's high is 373.74. Here we hit 0.79. And the big man talks tomorrow. So is he going to say the job is done? It's time to put the glasses away because we are clear for landing. Well, this is what I put a poll on Twitter for. Not a lot of votes, but let's look and see what you guys think. S&P and QQQ are both making a test to last month's high. Will it hold? Will it pass or fail? This will be very important because when Jerome Powell talks tomorrow, like we just mentioned, he's going to be giving a panel discussion at the 24th Jacques Polak Annual Research Conference. What does this mean? He could be potentially creating headlines. If we look here to the market, it looks like it is sleeping, it is docile, it is ready. What? It's ready for a big move. That's right. It is here. The stage is set for Jerome. Is he going to be Santa or is he going to be Krampus? That's the question. So one more time, if we look here to the monthly charts, the reason why today is particularly notable is because if we're going to keep up our pattern, which we've been looking at the daily chart with higher lows and higher highs closing over the previous candle high, this will be very important because as of right now, technically this is a failed breakout, which means we got over the high, but we're currently failing to hold it. We have a higher low, we have a higher high. And it's going to just be really important. So make sure you pay attention to that. Over here on SPY, because we're actually 5 cents lower, QQQ is 5 cents over, we don't actually have a higher high. We just have an inside bar. So all this means is that either going into tomorrow, the pattern's going to hold out or it's not. And the pattern I'm talking about here is a very simple one. So we're going to go ahead and delete this yellow box. But I want you to note something different here just really fast. So we're going to go back in time, but I want to show you what I'm looking at first here. So yesterday, we talked about the topping pattern where we get hollow candles, and then we form an inside bar, and then we get a lower low, and then the cut comes. So pay attention to that because we're going to look at another pattern with those yellow boxes, which is going to show us other clues as well. But look here. What do we have? Well, for the first time, we have a full candle, and a full candle just means that we closed lower than the previous session. So there's a few things which are interesting here. We got hollow candles all the way up until yesterday. We formed one inside bar, and that inside bar broke bullish. That was yesterday. And now today we have a higher high, we got a higher low, but we have a full candle, which means we're closing a little bit lower than we previously opened. We are actually closing above last week's high as well at 436.29. That was a really important test I was looking for today. We also have another higher low. So we talked about the warning signs for us to be going down yesterday. The first warning sign was a daily lower low. The second warning sign was a poke of the 50 DMA. And the third one was a close below the 50 DMA, which likely implies we're going to be entering the first gap. And there's potential to fill the second one. So don't be shy, right? Watch until the end of the video because I'm going to leave you with some very specific commentary on how to be prepared going into the rest of the week. But I'm going to ask you for a huge favor as we go further here. If you could please consider smashing that thumbs up and subscribing to the channel, I would really, really appreciate that. Thank you ahead of time. You guys have been such a great audience to support me. All right. So now we understand that topping pattern could lead to a fade. Yesterday, we talked about how that could lead to a test to as low as about 418, which would be a test to fill our last gap. It's not a very big one. We have the 50 DMA support. We got gap fill as support. We got the low here as support. We got the 200 DMA support. We've built a staircase of support as we've gone higher, even if it doesn't seem like it because it's been a nonstop shot higher. If we look over to the fear and greed, this is where the story gets a little bit more interesting because it pretty much confirms what I'm talking about here, a topping pattern. Yesterday, we were at 40, but this morning, we were actually at 43. So if we pop over here, what does it note? What do we see? Up and then sideways. So we're seeing a sideways action inside of basically a flag. That flag, or the same thing as forming an inside bar, which we had 2 days ago, is what we're really focused on here. So let's look at these yellow boxes. And then we want to zoom in a little bit closer because there's a pattern here, which I want you to really pay attention to. So I'll get to that in a moment. The first thing I want to do is just show you that this pattern doesn't happen very frequently. What I'm talking about is we're looking here at hollow candles. If we go to full candles, it's not the same thing. Hollow candles tell us that if the candle is green, it means we closed higher. Green just means if we closed higher than higher than we opened. I like these hollow ones. So what we're looking for is a succession of 7 to 8 or even more green candles in a row. If we looked at this most period here, what do we have? Well, we're over the 50 DMA, and we put in out of 7 bars, we put in 6 that are green. If we go all the way to the top here, out of 12 bars, we have 10 out of 12, but there are some red ones. We see one here on the 14th of July and one here on July 20th. If we now go back to the next one, let's look and see where it is here. Oh, it's like as we're forming a recovery. There was one that happened inside of the low here. This is 2018 again, when Jerome Powell was the Fed chair. He was not Santa Claus this year. He was Krampus. But as we're moving higher, where does it get more reliable? Over the 50, over the 50, over the 50, over the 50. Well, why would that happen? Well, it's because we're giving it a thrust, right? We're getting a thrust higher. And this is very important for us. Why? Let's look in a little bit closer, right? So let's look at this one here. And I'm just going to hide everything now so you can note that from the low here to the high, we have 15 candles, and we got 3 that are red inside of there. So there's a nonstop push higher. All right, let's look at the next one here. Hopefully you're seeing that there's a thrust, right? Something changes. We go higher. Same thing happens here. We got 15 bars, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4 that are red inside of there. All right, let's look at the next one. This is pretty interesting, isn't it? I hope it is. And again, please consider smashing the thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. Looking at this one right here, this is probably the closest one. So we get below the 50, we start slingshotting higher, and we form 8 out of 9 days that are green, right? So it's 8 out of 9, one red one right here. Otherwise, that's it. So then we go into a big corrective wave. Oops, let me make sure. Oops, then we have this most recent one here. This one's actually probably the closest one. So we go to low to high. We got 18 candles. And we have one here, right? We're looking at right here, October 22nd, 2021. Ironically, this is almost a year ago. And then we got another red one here on October 27th. If we now hide everything, that's a pretty nice expansion. What do we do? Oh my goodness. Do we leave gaps in the chart? We leave 1, 2, 3 gaps. Are you following along? We leave 3 gaps. We go a lot higher, and that's our all-time high. We hit 480, and that was it. There was zilch after that. Zilch, nada. Let's look forward here. Actually, sorry. All-time high is a little bit later. Then we go back and fill all the holes. So why is this time different? And again, I haven't quite shown you that pattern yet, so hopefully you can stay tuned for a few more minutes. I know I'm talking fast, but that's because you can see there's a little bit of excitement. 1, 2, 3 gaps in a row. What are we? Back over the 50 DMA. So why is this so important? Why do I keep talking about that 50 DMA? Well, let's look here and see what happens. So we're now going to look to every single one of these patterns. I just want to show you, after we get all those days in a row, boom, test the 50. Get all those green days in a row, boom, test the 50. Get all those green days in a row, boom, test the 50. Get all those green days in a row, boom, test the 50. Get all those green days in a row, boom, test the 50. So what does that imply? Well, did we already get a test at the 50? Technically, we did not. So I would assume this test is coming. And because it's sloping down, it means that we're likely going to be getting a little bit closer to 432, 433. Remember, that was our high going all the way back here to August. So is resistance now truly support? That's really important as we now test that zone. Second thing I would note is that if we now look a little bit closer here, let me bring back all my lines to make sure I don't lose them. All right, come on, lines, come back, please. There we go. Thank you for bearing with me. If I look at the reason why maybe we bounced here today, it's because ES actually got quite close. It got within 1.5 points of actually testing that area, and then we bounced. So I think that's the reason why we bounced here today. I can also note that we didn't see another thrust higher with fear and greed, so we're definitely flagging out. And I think it's because the big man's going to talk. So is he putting away those glasses, or is he going to lift them up and say, that's right, time to fail, time to go lower into the end of the year. Right now, it's a small vote. Maybe you're going to follow me on Twitter and vote for this poll. Right now, 60% of people think we're going to go lower. So that's not a really good sign for me, but I actually like being the contrarian, which means I actually like that. If everyone's looking one way, it means it's going to be harder for us to go there. Looking at the last 1 week, the last 1 month, and looking back here year to date, things look a lot better. Energy is red. And if we were really worried about what's happening in the Middle East flaring up and causing an oil shock, well, send a memo to the stonks. They do not see it coming here. So that's pretty much where I want to leave things today. I think I went through a lot of the commentary yesterday. So hopefully you notice this pattern that we're looking at here now. It's a pretty hard one to find, which means that for some reason there's a squeeze that's happening. I encourage you to watch the weekend deep dive now queued up here on the left-hand side, which is where we talked about that channel lower for SPY and what could happen if we hit the top and reject versus if we go higher. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you.